Dead Trigger is another one that I've been playing for years. I absolutely love that game. If you've never played Dead Trigger before, definitely look it up on the App Store or the Play Store. It is a super rad zombie first-person shooter. They also had a sequel that came out, Dead Trigger 2, but I definitely put way more time into that first one. I remember when I used to play it on my iPod Touch, dude. I played it for so many hours on end that it would literally start to burn my thumb if I would press like the top of the device near the camera. That happened with a lot of games back then. There was a lot of games that I just played for hours on end on that iPod Touch. They had the mobile port of Resident Evil 4. I played that one all the time. They had the mobile port of Call of Duty World at War Zombies, which I remember that came out around the time that the DLCs were actually coming out in World at War, like in 2009. So I played that all the time on my iPod Touch. And then when they came out with Black Ops Zombies, that one there, I remember paying, because that one was like $7, whereas World at War was $5. I was like, oh man, they're charging me a whole $2 extra. I'm gonna have to mow the lawn to get a new iTunes card just to afford this one. So that's how it worked back then. You had like the $1 apps, you had like the $2, $3 apps, and then you had some of the bigger games like Call of Duty was like, all right, you're gonna need to cough up $5 for this one. And then the really big games were $7. There was barely any games that went above $6.99. You had like some of the Final Fantasy games on there. I remember they were like pushing like $15. I saw those. I was like, dude, that's like next level rich people games. Like, obviously I already knew about Final Fantasy because I grew up playing Final Fantasy 3 on the SNES, but I just more meant in the sense of like seeing a game that was, you know, not necessarily just Final Fantasy, but any game that was like that price on there. I was like, dude, that's a rich people's game. Only like rich people are shelling out like $15 for a mobile game, at least back then. Nowadays it's like, all right, just, you know, give me your daily $100 for your Genshin rolls. That's one thing I will say. Even though I can be a sucker for mobile games from time to time, I never end up wailing out. I'm one of those people where I refuse to wail out on games, at least when it comes to like progression. I won't lie, like, yeah, you know, sometimes I'll shell out for like skins or something in a game, but when it comes to like in-game progression, I never just pay to beat something in the game faster. I would always rather grind for it, so then I have that sense of like, oh yeah, I did this, even if it takes me like 500 hours to do it, whereas I could pay for it and get it done in 30 seconds. I don't care, I'm spending the 500 hours. That's still just crazy to think, man. Back then, again, looking at a $15 game on the App Store, I was like, oh man. And even the $7 ones are like, oh man, that's asking for some big boy bucks for that game, even for a kid, because, you know, obviously adult money versus kid money is way different, but even nowadays, kids can see $5 and be like, that's nothing. Back then, dude, you mow the entire lawn and you get $5, and dude, that was enough to get you like that was enough to set you up for retirement back then. Nowadays, you can't even buy a gumball with that. Just for context, and I'm gonna age myself so heavily here, I remember a time when it costed $1 for a gallon of gas. And with that, I can literally see gray hairs forming, which means that it's time for me to turn off the camera, shut up, and get back to grinding.